Hello and welcome to this first lesson in the Introduction to Graphical Programming course by PyAngelo. Now, if you're not watching this video on the PyAngelo website, then head over there and watch it now because we've got this video along with an editor so you can pause the video, do your coding, learn some stuff, and it's much more interactive. Now, if you don't have an account, again, hop over to pyangelo.com, click on the register button or the create your free account button and then enter your details, agree to the terms and conditions and click create my free account. You'll then be sent an email to the address you specified. Once you confirm that email address, you're good to go. Now I already have an account here, and so I just want to highlight a few things about the PyAngelo website and then we'll get right into it. Now the idea of these lessons is that you do a lot of interactive programming. But this first one we just got to cover off a few things. So across the top we have the My Sketches link, and a sketch in PyAngelo is really a program that you write. So all of your programs you'll find under here under My Sketches. And we call them sketches because this is a graphical programming environment, and as the name suggests, PyAngelo, Pi for Python and Angelo for the artist Michelangelo. So we're really looking to learn programming by using graphics. And so you say, what is graphical programming? Well, let me just show you a few things you can do with PyAngelo. Well, here's a program that draws a house. So you can draw things, you can draw different shapes, and so you can create quite good graphics. But also you can do animations. Here is some fireworks. Now, I just love the look of this. I could actually sit here and watch this all day. I don't know about you, but that looks so good. Anyway, I better move on. I'll stop that. You can also program games. So here is a classic game of Breakout. Now, I can play this. Whoa! Now, I guess you don't want to watch me playing this all day, so I'll stop this too. But how cool is that? Playing some really fun games that you programmed right here in PyAngelo. So this tutorial is called the Introduction to Graphical Programming, and you can get to that by going to this tutorials page and clicking on Introduction to Programming and then Introduction to Graphical Programming. And here you can see a list of all the lessons in here, and we are on this coordinates one. So if you click on coordinates, then you can see it will load up a video, and that is what you would be watching right now. And then here, so you can play the video and you can edit your code, pause the video, and really be interactive. And so when you get to these lessons, the first thing you should probably do is run the starter code that you're given. So with each of these lessons, you're going to be given some kind of starter code. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, it looks like I've got this yellow canvas with a black dot in the middle. So let's really break this down. What does this command here do? Set canvas size. Now you can probably guess from the name, but what are these numbers? So experiment with that. Try and play around. Maybe change this to 1000 instead of 640 and then click the start button. Oh, it looks like it got wider. Interesting. What if I change this 360 to be 100, what would happen? Oh, now that's not as high. So it looks like this might be the width and the height. But just pause the video and have a play around with that and come back when you're done. Now, hopefully you also had to play around with some of these other things. Like, what is this background? It's got 255, 255, 0. What if I make this 0 here as well and then start? Oh, now it's green. Okay, so this looks like it's filling the whole canvas with a particular color. Interesting. Now, one other thing I'd like to point out to you here is that we have this great reference page. And if I'm going to open this up in a new tab, the reference library, and it tells you all about the commands we're looking at. So here, set canvas size has a description, tells you what the arguments are, and explains how it works. And the background command, if I search for that background, here's the background under the color section, tells us what the background command does. So again, have a look through this and maybe even pause the video now and look through the reference page and try and find out some of the things you can do with these commands. Now, two other things we want to figure out is what is the coordinate system? So how can we draw something in a specific location using PyAngelo? Now, the set canvas size, as we said, if I put this to 640 and 360, the 640 means that the canvas is 640 pixels wide, and the 360 means it's 360 pixels high. So when we run this now, 640 across and 360 high. Now, what does that actually look like? Let's have a look. I'm going to, have a look here. I have this grid drawn out. Now, obviously, you don't see the grid in the actual sketch, but you can imagine that there's a grid here, and the bottom left-hand corner is 0, 0. So down here on my actual sketch is where 0, 0 is. And then just like you would have learned in maths in the Cartesian plane, the x-axis goes across and the y-axis goes up and down. So as we move to the right, the numbers get bigger. And because I said it was 640 pixels wide, I actually have the numbers from 0 to 639. And yes, that is 640 pixels, because we've got 1 to 639 plus 0. So you can actually draw on the 0th pixel and all the way up to the 639th pixel. And the same for the height. It starts at 0, and then as you go up the screen, the height increases. So the pixels here go from 0 to 359, which is 360 different pixels that we can draw on. So just to follow up on that, if I had, I've got another image here, and let me just start that up. Here we go. Now this point here is at the location 100, 200. And how do we figure that out? Well, when we're talking about locations, we always put the x-axis first, then the y-axis. So this point is 100 pixels across from the bottom left of the screen, and then it is 200 pixels up. And that's how we determine where this point is located. And just one last example, just to drive home the point. Where is this point located? Well, you can see I've got it labeled 500 and 100, which means we go across 500 pixels and up 100, and that's where the point is. And so now, hopefully, knowing this information, you can figure out what this point command here does. In PyAngelo, we have another command, new command, point, and we pass in this information, 320, 180. So what that means is we go across 320 pixels. Remember, our canvas size is 640 pixels wide, so this is going to be halfway across. And then we go up 180 pixels, which is halfway up. So we get this point in the middle of the screen. And so the last piece of the puzzle here for this program is, what does this stroke weight command do? Well, it sets how many pixels to draw the point. So by default, if I don't have this at all, it will have a stroke weight of 1. And there you go, it's a very tiny little pixel there. And if I put this to 10, I'll get a bigger dot, and 20, an even bigger dot. So it's how many pixels for that point. And later on, we're going to learn how to draw some shapes, and the borders of the shapes, the stroke weight will also affect that border. Okay, so to finish off this video, I'm setting you a challenge. Can you create a canvas which is 640 pixels wide by 360 pixels high, has a background color? Well, let me actually just check. There's one more thing I want to show you. There's actually for these tutorials, if I go to the overall screen for it, Introduction to Graphical Programming, there's this download tutorial PDF. Now this is really good to download because it gives you the information that I'm talking to you about in a condensed form and in a booklet form. So you can see here's the workbook, and it talks about what I've talked about, the set canvas size, the coordinate system, the background command, the point command, the stroke weight command, and then it has a challenge for you. It says your task is to create a canvas that is 640 pixels wide, 360 pixels high, and then you would set the background of the color of the canvas to yellow, and that's what we had originally. And a little hint here, I'm going to go into this program here. The yellow has a background with 255 for the first argument, which is actually the amount of red to show, 255 for the amount of green to show, and 0 for the amount of blue to show. Now don't worry too much about this here. Colors, we're going to get to that in a couple of tutorials. So don't spend too much time on that. Okay, and then you're required to draw 5 points, all with a weight of 5 pixels. And you should draw 1 point in each corner of the canvas. All right. And the 5th point is in the middle of the screen. So good luck with that challenge. Now, I want you to actually pause the video, try that out yourself. Remember, you're going to get the most out of these tutorials if you're watching the video, pausing it, and then trying to create the programs yourself. So pause the video, and then I'll show you how I would tackle this challenge. All right, I'm assuming you've given this a go. And so I'm going to walk through what I would do. The first thing we want is a canvas that is 640 pixels wide, 360 pixels high. So I'm going to use the set canvas size. And notice here the format of these function names. We actually call these, you can think of them as commands. We're telling the computer what to do, but the technical name for these is functions. And in PyAngelo, most of these functions have what we call camel case, because they look a bit like a camel, because the first word is always lowercase, and then any subsequent words have the first letter of that word capitalized. So canvas has a capital C and size has a capital S. So hopefully knowing that camel case convention will help you remember when to put a capital and when not to put a capital. So set canvas size, capital C, capital S for size. Now we put 640 for the width, 360 for the height. Then we go on to the background function and we pass in 255, 255, 0. Now, you'll see that a lot of these functions have the same sort of format. We call the function and then we pass some information to it. Let's say I want to tell you how to bake a cake. You would ask, how long do you bake the cake for? What temperature? That information we pass inside the brackets. And if a function doesn't need any extra information, we still put the brackets after it to say call this function, but we're not passing anything. But all these ones do. So these first 2 lines now we have set up are good. We've set the canvas size correctly. We've set the background color to yellow. Now we call this stroke weight of 5, and then we want to draw 5 different points. So I'm going to draw the first point in the bottom left corner of the screen. And if we remember from the coordinate system, let me just bring this up once more. 0, 0 is the bottom left. So if I draw in the 0, 0, I'll draw the bottom left corner. So I'm going to just put this over here so I can reference it. So here, the first point we want to do is at 0, 0. And if I start that now, there we see the point there. Now, because I set the weight to 5, which I asked you to do, some of the pixels kind of off the canvas, but you can see the top right coordinate of it. And so then to draw in the top left corner, I'm going to also draw a point function. And remember, we specify the X coordinate first. So the top left is not across the screen at all. So 0 pixels across, and remember, it's 359 pixels up because 0 is actually a pixel. So that is the 360th pixel we've done. So if I start that now, I can see I've got it in the top left. Let's draw one in the top right. So that one is point. We have to go across 639 pixels all the way across and up 359 pixels. So start, and there you can see the point in the top right. And now the bottom right corner, let's go point. We want to go, we want to go 639 pixels across the screen and 0 pixels up, because now that is at the bottom of the screen. And there's our point. Now remember, this stroke weight order is important. If I put this stroke weight after all these, then these points are now much smaller. They're tiny little dots. And that's because the order is important. It's setting the stroke weight at the end. So I need to call this first before any of the points, and then it will take place. It's like saying, what pencil are you going to use? Pick that up, and now the rest of your drawings are going to use this. So I don't have to put stroke weight 5 before each point command. I've set the stroke weight here, and it applies to any subsequent things that I draw. Now the last thing we want to do is put something in the middle of the screen. Now remember, it's 640 wide, so the middle of the screen would be, I need that on a new line, would be 320 pixels across and 180 pixels up. And there we go. I think that is our task done. Awesome. Well, thanks for getting through this first video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one where we're going to learn about drawing some basic shapes. See you then.